Good morning, everybody. Back here at the shop again, and we're gonna do what you guys have all been wanting us to do. We're gonna work on Mullet, and you can see there's still no motor in it, not much suspension in it, but all that's gonna change today. We've got all the stuff we need to at least set the motor down in it. Should have push rods here actually later today, and we might put them in, or we might just go without them. But yeah, we got a whole rack of parts here to get us started. All kinds of goodies. We're gonna put some of the suspension stuff on in the front today. I plan to actually show you guys like what I do for tuning the bump steer on a car. And I do that before I even put the shock in the car. So, appreciate you watching. Please subscribe to the channel, especially if you want to see more of this build, because there's going to be a lot of it coming up soon, because that's pretty much what we're doing straight for the next 2 weeks. So, let's get to work. All right, so first order of business for this little project today, we got to put the torque converter in the transmission. Little tip here, one thing that I have done on more than a few occasions is I've put the engine and transmission together and then realized that I didn't have a hole that quite lined up for the torque converter. Like 2 of the holes would line up, but then 1 hole would be slightly smaller. And actually you can see this converter right here, how that's slotted for a smaller bolt. But then over here, it's like a 7/16 diameter hole. But here, the width of this is only 3/8. Well, if you need that particular bolt pattern, and it's your converter has 7/16 bolts, you're gonna have a problem. And that is a royal pain in the butt to try and fix in the car, especially depending on if everything's all jammed in there and everything. But the easiest fix is to check it before you even put it in the car. So this particular converter being a 6-bolt, actually has 2 different bolt patterns in it, but they're already set up. All 7/16 all line up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, so I'm gonna go stick the converter in the transmission. I'm gonna pour a quart of transmission fluid into the torque converter just so it's not completely dry. It's got a little bit of fluid in them already. Like I think they dump some in them before they send them out at the manufacturer. But always put a little bit of transmission fluid in your torque converter before you stick it in the transmission. And lube up the outside of it in the seal so it's not riding dry on the seal there. So here we go. Cool. Another tip for everybody. If the face of your torque converter is not well behind the plane of the engine, you know you're not in all the way. So now this has a 90 thousandths mid plate in it, but you can still see we are right at 1.25 inches back from the face of this plate, and there's a little bit of a gap there. So let's see what it actually is pushing it up. So 1 1/8 inches. And so now when we bolt the engine and the transmission, there'll be a little bit of space between there. Once we get the engine in now, we'll look and see what kind of space there is between these pads and the flex plate, and we're gonna add washers to achieve 3/16 of an inch, and then we'll pull the converter out to mate to the flex plate, and that gives a little bit of room between the back side of the converter and the pump of the transmission. Because if you just ram this in and jam washers in here so it tightens up, you'll break the pump. Good chance you'll hurt the thrust bearing in the engine. So you want everything to have just a little bit of room to, not that it does this is highly exaggerated, but you want it to have a little bit of room to expand and contract, because there's magic happening inside this converter, and it may grow a little bit with heat, you know, grow front and back. And so you want to have a little bit of room for everything to kind of have some room to move around and grow in there. So let's drop the motor in this thing. Show you guys how to check the clearance from the torque converter to the flex plate. Just 2 drill bits. Basically, this is an 1/8 inch drill bit, and it's a little boogered up on a couple of little spots, and a 3/16 drill bit, and we basically want this one to be able to slide in and this one to be able to not slide in. You know, once we get the shims and the washers and all that other stuff, if they're needed. I'm hoping this thing will just slide in there. One of them will, hoping the 1/8 inch maybe will just barely slide in, and we'll be good to go. So we've got our gap. This is the 3/16. All right, no bueno. This is the 1/8. There we go. It's got just a little bit of drag. I think the spec on the converter paper was 120 thousandths to 180 thousandths. So this should be 125 thousandths if it's an 1/8 inch drill bit. And it'll go in without really forcing it. Just slides right in there. So we are good to go with the converter spacing. All I need to do is get some bolts, some Loctite, tighten these things in there, and the engine and transmission are assembled. Stop! Why are you not stopping? Well, now that we've got the engine in and mounted, I wonder if the hood's gonna fit. So you guys can see it's kind of sticking up above the fenders a little bit. But Cleetus sent us the hood up today. And it's kind of got a bubble in it. So I'm going to set it on there and see if it fits. I hope it does. Oh, man. Oh, that's close. Probably should have done that beforehand. It's okay though. Ooh, that's close. I'm gonna crawl into this thing. All right, so, oh, my light's dead. Maybe it'll last a little while on low. See what I see. We are just hitting right on the very front edge. So I already kind of had the idea that the front of the engine was a little high. Man, I don't want to have to cut just a tiny hole in the hood. So not only is the engine, yeah, okay, light, we hear you. Hold on, we'll be right back. All right, so like I was saying, I kind of thought that the engine placement was a little high and a little far forward in this car. When we first dropped the engine in, it's a little close. Like once there's a steering joint on here, you can actually see where we nicked the corner of the oil pan right there a little bit on the flange. So it kind of was feeling like the engine could go backwards that way and also down a little bit. And now, seeing this hood situation, I really want to keep everything below the hood. I know, it's a Cleetus car. It's got to have the turbos above the hood and the engine sticking out of the hood and all that fun stuff. But what if we do something different? Gosh, I really want this to be below the hood. So now the thought starts. I was kind of wanting to move the engine but I didn't really want to move the engine, but I wanted to move the engine. Man, I'm running out of time on this thing too. If I move the engine, I solve some more problems. And I think I make everything better. Helps the driveline angles out. It just sucks to take it all back out and effectively start over with some things. Well, yeah. Yep. Gonna pull the engine back out. Yep, I think I'm gonna pull the engine back out. So I'll have to redo transmission cross member, the mid plate mounts, and the motor plate mounts. Back and down. I think that's the smarter move, even though it stinks that it's some extra work. All right, so I've done some more thinking, and I'm moving the engine. So about where I've got this piece of tape is where the contact point is. And if you see, pretty much anything I do to move that point back, even if it's an inch, the hood is going upwards right there. So if I move the engine back an inch and down 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch, that should get us the clearance we need. So by my estimations, we only need about 1/4 of an inch here to make the hood go down here. Because this hood, you can see it's actually tweaked a little bit from the ride up here, but the hood is flexible enough, and this is the concerning part. So we're hard on the hood right here. And yep, I could just mash this thing down and let it take shape. But what would happen is this paint right here would start cracking. And we don't want that. But we do want the engine just below that. So that's what's going to happen. Which means that all this is coming back out. Yeah. Sometimes making sure things get done the right way really is a hassle for me a little bit. But it's going to be right. And it's going to be awesome that it's below the hood. Can you tell I'm still second guessing myself a little bit? Like, I know it's going to be better, but it's going to be more work. Like when we did the Dale truck, that was 2 quick mounts. It was basically the engine, we left the transmission mount alone and just let the front of the engine come down. So I had to cut off 2 tubes, lower the engine down, re-weld those tubes. It was like a 2 or 3 hour job. That's like a 10, 12 hour fix to get it. Maybe it's not going to be, but I have a feeling it's going to be day and a half worth of work. Because I'm going to have to look. I was looking, and to go backwards, you can see the tabs for the motor plate are going to need to be trimmed. The holes for the motor plate will need to be moved to the left a little bit. So like most things with custom cars, you make one change that mandates another change, that mandates another change, that mandates another change. And eventually you get to where you're happy and everything works like it's supposed to. But anyways, that's gonna wrap up this video. I had planned to do some suspension stuff, but then the hood showed up and I changed my mind. Especially now that I've got to take all that stuff out. I'll do the suspension, the bump steer stuff once I get the motor out, and yeah, I'll do that once I get the motor out and can mock everything up, because most likely I'm gonna get the motor out, then do the suspension, the front suspension, and then actually put the car in the lift. I don't know if I'll do that or not. Well, as always, I appreciate everybody watching the channel. It's been awesome to have this thing growing like it is. It's really been a big shock to me that you guys would be as interested as you are in the stuff we're doing. And this is on the ticket for the next little bit here, because we're trying to make the race at the end of January. And I'm not gonna lie, it's gonna be tough. We still have wiring to do, brakes, the hot side, the cold side, plumbing. I've got a plan, but it's still gonna be tight. At least all the cage and the majority of the major fab work is done in the car, and it's stuff that I can plan for and kind of allocate time for and try to get this thing happening. But thanks again for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and click the bell icon so you get notified when we release a new video. If you guys like the mullet build, that's what it's going to be for the next little bit. There might be a couple other little feeder videos in from some of our other projects that have happened and I just haven't finished the video for. But if you like this build, click the subscribe button, give me a like, give me a comment, share the video around, do all that good stuff. We're going to try and get the old YouTube channel really kicking in 2021. Thanks again for watching. We will see you next time.